Today, I thought that we could talk about similarities between the three women that we chat the most about. From poor thought processes to living in fantasy worlds, Amber, Chantal, and Rosie could actually be the same person if we only looked at their behaviors. And, in all honesty, those behaviors have also led to the same physical attributes being shared. It's no secret that none of these women had healthy childhoods. I think all of their parents felt them in one way or another, from outright neglect, using fast food as a babysitter, to coddling and refusing to set proper boundaries for them. These women were essentially raised to be societal outcasts, and they certainly have not deviated from that. But what actually caused them to become who they are? And is there something that each woman shares with the other regarding upbringing that sealed the deal in how they would one day behave? Was it hardwired or influenced? Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and share some ideas about what went wrong and if it's still possible to correct those behaviors today. You will see a graph coming up shortly, and this graph is going to be similarities in their upbringing. Now, some of these women will be in all of the categories, and some will not be. I have got 10 things listed, and these are childhood environmental dysfunctions. So it'll range from neglect to even the children being a lot of trouble when they were in school. Not being able to regulate their emotions in school or having problems with aggression and just things of that nature. So as we look at this graph, you are going to see the categories, and then you will see the names of the women beside each category if I believe that they fall into that category. So I got my information just by watching videos and listening to what each of these women had to say in their own words about what it was like growing up, what their childhoods were like, and maybe what they had to say about their parents, their friends, or what types of troubles they got into growing up. Okay, so the first category is single parent home. I've listed Chantal because she was primarily raised by her mother based on the content that I've watched of hers. Her grandmother did play a supporting role, but I am going to place her here. I do believe that Amber and Rosie could be listed under a category for absent parents, with Amber's parents being absent due to substance abuse and other issues, and Rosie's parents being absent due to working nonstop. But both Amber and Rosie did have their mothers and fathers living inside their childhood homes. Next is child neglect. Now, I've listed all three women here because I do believe they experienced neglect in different ways. Amber had her most basic needs neglected her entire childhood. Chantal, at the very least, felt neglected because she has made the statement that she acted out horribly growing up, and she admitted to doing some really crazy stuff. But she says that she did it for attention, and from that, I think we can gather that she felt unseen or unheard, or that her needs were being neglected. Since Rosie has spoken about her parents working 7 jobs at one time between them, and since she shared the home with her older sister plus a younger brother who had special needs, Rosie may have felt neglected at times as well. So I have put all three women here. The next is no boundaries, and this refers to households that did not set appropriate boundaries or did not require the children to stay consistently within those boundaries. I've listed Amber and Rosie in this one because each have shared stories of manipulating to avoid following rules or crossing boundaries. Amber would do this by playing the victim regularly, and Rosie would cross boundaries by lying so convincingly that she would often gaslight her parents into believing that she had never crossed any boundaries or broken any rules at all. Chantal, on the other hand, had boundaries set, but she chose to ignore them. They were still set and expected to be followed, though. The next category is parental placating, and this is when parents will give in to children to avoid temper tantrums or bad behaviors because the parents just want to avoid the stress or avoid having to deal with their kid having fits. I think Amber's parents and Rosie's parents likely did this a lot. I've heard stories about how Amber would be cruel to her mother and Christine would spoil her or give her what she wanted just in an attempt to keep the peace. I think this is similar to Rosie's upbringing because even today, if we watch her live streams, we will see her mother do chores and tasks for Rosie just to keep her placated. When Rosie gets mad at her mother today, she regularly resorts to a childhood pitiful story of how she was mistreated, neglected, or wrongly punished when she was in fact innocent. So she still to this day tries guilting Mama Jean, and Mama Jean still waits on Rosie hand and foot to smooth out the rough edges because I think she just doesn't want to deal with it. Next is no consistent or appropriate consequences for the child. I've got Amber and Rosie listed here for what I think are obvious reasons. Amber's parents were too high to do anything consistently, and according to Rosie, her parents were always working. So I can only imagine that they were gone a lot from the home, making enforcing rules and consistent consequences difficult. Issues at school is listed next. Chantal and Amber take the cake, no pun intended. Amber was a bully and she got into fights, even being required to do community service at one time. Now, I still think it was weird to let a person in trouble for abusing others at school go to volunteer in a nursing home, but that's just me. Anyway, we know that Chantal got into trouble at school as well, including having a boyfriend much, much older who had another woman pregnant at the time. And she would get into fights, and in combination with her troubles at home with her siblings and mother, she was eventually sent to a group home. Her mother did not allow her to return home after she left the group home either. Parental aggression is next, and it refers to parents who are fighting with one another or being aggressive to each other in front of the children. I know that Amber saw her mother being mistreated by her dad, but I'm unsure of Chantal or Rosie being in that type of environment. Since I could not find anything about that for those two, I've just completely left them out of this category. But if you know about something, let me know in the comments down below. Next is poverty. And this was a hard one for me to find anything factually definitive on, but without a doubt, Amber did grow up very impoverished. I know that Chantal's grandmother helped out financially at times, so I'm going to presume that this means her basic necessities were met. And since Rosie's parents allegedly had multiple jobs at one time, I'm going to think that they also had their basic needs met. This does not mean that they did not experience any rough times or struggles, but I do think that Rosie and Chantal had more securities at home than Amber ever did. For the category of parental drug and alcohol abuse, I've got Amber's household listed, and I'm not sure about Chantal or Rosie. Since Rosie's parents were strict Mormons, I do not believe there was any drug or alcohol abuse, but I really don't know about Chantal's mother's habits or vices, if there were any. The last one is parental inconsistencies or instabilities. At first, I only had Amber and Rosie listed, but I've added Chantal because I do think it's safe to presume, based on the stories that all three women have shared over the years, that they did all feel that their home environments were unstable. Now, this could range from anything from substance abuse to not having parents at home when they needed them, or just not being able to count on their parent to be there when they needed them. Looking at the ways these women were raised or looking at how they may have faced similar challenges growing up does not necessarily prove that they chose to be who and what they are today because of how they grew up. The reality is that humans are incredibly complex people and they all have different reasons or excuses for living as they choose to live. But I do think that the similarities may provide some answers because if the circumstances are similar, and if the women share similar stories and similar feelings, and if the outcomes are again similar, then maybe parenting styles or the lack of solid parenting is in fact a make it or break it for many young adults entering into a world not at all prepared for how things are going to be done. So I think we have to really consider, based on how children are raised, is that upbringing merely an influence of who or what they will one day become, or is it hardwiring those children to be a specific way? We know for Amber, Chantal, and Rosee, they have no work ethic, no social skills, no desire to fix problems, whether they created them or not. They're all immature, and they consistently make bad choices. But I think that's probably the biggest message that I walked away with after going through the videos and reports and, just the firsthand witness encounters of people who have known these women. I got that although all of these women in varying ways did not get humans necessarily prepared for parenting or parents who were willing or able or ready to do whatever it took to promote a healthy childhood, these women were all still given chances. Whether it was with caring, loving, stable grandparents who offered support, teachers, counselors, and foster parents who tried to intervene, or even just them seeing society, observing others, and deep down knowing that their way was not the normal way of life. Amber, Chantal, and Rosee still had something so broken, with so much anger and rage, that they all ended up where they are now, unprepared for a world they once wished they could be part of, and unfit to be part of a world that tried to teach them. If you're new, I'm Birdie, and I thank you for stopping by. If you need to reach me, just send me an email. I'll be around. I hope you each have a day just as beautiful and meaningful as you all are. Be safe and know you're loved. I'll see you right here next time. Bye for now.